Good morning, everyone. Wow, I'm really impressed. There's a very nice turnout this morning, and we've been trying to rebuild since the pandemic, and it's great to see so many people coming out live to see our programs in person. Although we do continue to stream this on Facebook, so I can remind everyone that if you enjoy the presentation and want to see it again, you can do that through the Society's Facebook page, and I believe through the museum's Facebook page. And now all of our lunch talks are archived for future reference. And that's a big improvement, because some of the presentations, or really virtually all of them, are worth seeing again, and if one's doing research or whatever, it's great to be able to go back and review them. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope that you all had a great holiday season. I'm not sure that I'm real fond of it. I love Halloween and the image of fall with leaves churning, and in Arizona, we've got trees that still haven't even dropped their leaves yet, so it doesn't know when fall comes. But unfortunately, at least in my mind, the day after Halloween is Thanksgiving, and the day after Thanksgiving is Christmas. The day after that is New Year's, and the day after, well, 2 days after that, it's 120 degrees again, and we start the cycle all over. So this is a great time of year if we can just sit back and learn to enjoy it. We've got a great program for you today. I want to remind everyone that we are very pleased that Friendship Village has continued to be our partner and sponsor these lunch talks, so that we are able to award our speakers some honorariums, and it just helps us improve the quality of the programs that we present. So before we get started, please let me introduce to you Mark Young, who is the director of, help me out, Director of Marketing, sure, I should know that. And he's got a few words to say on behalf of Friendship Village. So if we can run that.
Hello, my name is Mark Young, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Sales here at Friendship Village. Not know, Friendship Village has been in expansion mode since July 2019. In July of 2021, we opened our Mesquite building, which has 40 new apartment homes. Phase 2 of our expansion efforts, Acacia, will offer 64 apartment homes.
It's going out on Facebook.
Underground parking, and an impressive rooftop restaurant.
To the wider
we are
audience.
scheduled
Mark
to have
will be
Acacia
saying,
open in the summer of 2024.
Welcome to the lunch talk.
If you'd like a tour of the campus, please contact the marketing department or go to our website, friendshipvillageaz.com, to see a virtual tour.
4 or 5 years
Friendship Village is very proud to be a featured sponsor of the Tempe History Society and appreciate the different perspectives offered by the many speakers.
Welcome.
Thank you all for your time, and enjoy your talk.
And encourage.
Hello, my name is Mark Young, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Sales here at Friendship Village of Tempe.
To come and visit. For those, there's always a warm welcome for anybody that wants to see Friendship Village, and I believe this is around the 50th year, 40-something? No, don't correct me, just... If I need correction, I'll give it to you. 40-something, all right. It has been the premier facility in Tempe, and I think was one of the first of its kind. So it really was pioneering. So how are we doing? Is Mark still talking? Oh, we're back. Hi, welcome. All right. Let us get on to the activities of today. if you haven't seen it yet, and I might talk about it a little bit later, we are so pleased to have a very special exhibit here at the museum. It's called Guadalupe, Where Three Cultures Flourish. And Guadalupe is maybe one of those mystery communities to many people. It sits off just a little bit south of Tempe. Many people have never been through Guadalupe or know its history or its culture and its relationship to Tempe. And there's always been a very close tie between the two communities. So over the years, the museum has never done an exhibit on Guadalupe, and yet its history, as I say, is so tied to the regular history of Tempe. That recognition is very important. And as a follow-up to our talk this morning, I certainly would recommend taking some time to look through the exhibit because it is rather remarkable. So probably the best way to learn more about Guadalupe is to have someone here who grew up there and knows the history intimately and has been closely connected to Guadalupe over the years. And I have been rehearsing this because Chris Marine worked on me all morning. Octaviana, is that close? Octaviana, Valenzuela, Trujillo. Normally I would say Jane Smith, but that would be disrespectful. So, Octaviana, we are happy to have you here today. If I read all of the credits that this remarkable woman has accomplished, that would take up most of the lunch talks. But a couple of things that are important. One is that in 1994, she became the first woman to be chairman of the Yaqui tribe of Arizona. So that's a remarkable accomplishment on its own. From there on, she's been involved in education and all sorts of activities. So we are really thrilled and pleased to have Octaviana here today. Please give her a warm welcome. Welcome.
Dios enchanea, que chemalea, muy buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm very pleased to see everyone here. I wasn't sure about the size of the audience, but this is really remarkable. Thank you for joining me. I'd like to thank Dr. Christine Marin, who is on the board for the Tempe History Society, along with her colleagues for the invitation to be part of the speakers for the lunch talks here at the museum. Also, of course, Brenda Abney, who is the director of the Tempe History Museum, as well as Brianna King, who is the events coordinator. So thank you for helping me set up for this presentation. I want to say that my presentation is more on the personal level. I would encourage you to go through the exhibit space for the Guadalupe exhibit because you'll find more details about our community, our pueblo, our village. And I really felt like it was important for me to tell my story, our story. We have many wonderful educators, historians, archaeologists, anthropologists that have contributed over many, many years telling our story, but it's our time to tell our story. And so it becomes very personal. I was born in Guadalupe at home, and I'll show you where I was born. I was born just west of the Cultural Plaza. My mom raised a large family. I have 7 brothers and 3 sisters. And so the older siblings, we were all born at home. At that time, midwives were used, and curanderas, healers, to really provide health care, well-being to so many of the families of Guadalupe, primarily because Guadalupe was so far away from the city of Phoenix, downtown, or Tempe. And it was a time of much growth, as we see now that we have the Phoenix metropolitan area being one of the fastest and largest cities in the country. So I will begin with some slides. And let me see if I understand how to use this little gadget. Can I? Okay. So where to? I placed this map because it gives you a little context to our communities. But I have to say that indigenous peoples, and certainly it was no different for the Yueme, the Yaqui, to be mobile. Mobility was very much part of indigenous people. So we had trade routes, we had trade locations where other indigenous people would come and gather and trade with us. We also had military camps throughout what we know today as the Southwest. So our time in this part of Arizona has been since time immemorial. However, in our recent history, and you may know part of the history, Yaqui families were always very determined and very proud to fight for their territory. And so it was, when colonization took place, when the Spaniards were exploring Northwest Mexico, and subsequent governments that came to rule Mexico. And during the time of independence, that was also a very difficult time for so many Yaqui families. So in this map, you can see that you see part of the state of Sonora, just south of Arizona. And then you see, obviously, a very important railroad from Guaymas going north to the border, coming to the Tucson area, up toward the Phoenix area, and off to Yuma and to California. This was a very important artery and form of transportation and guidance for so many families during the time that they were coming to the Valley of the Sun, the Salt River Valley, to really look for opportunities, whether it was for working for the railroad, working in the agricultural fields, the mining areas in what we know today as the state of Arizona. And we're talking about the Arizona Territory when my grandparents were born here in the state of Arizona. My grandfather was born in a small, it's now a ghost town, but it's still much there. I mean, you can actually visit this small town called, oh my goodness, it'll come to me. It's just north of Douglas, and it's called Fairbanks, very close to Tombstone. Evidently, an investor wanted to develop a really important rail line from Tombstone in that area up north and to the south. So he invested money to use laborers to help building this rail line in Fairbanks. And so he was Mr. Fairbanks. And that place is there, but it's a ghost town. But you can actually go visit it. They do have an old school and some small buildings that are still there for people to visit in southern Arizona. And my grandmother, she was born in Congress, Arizona. Congress is near Wickenburg. And that was an old mining town, and it too is a ghost town. But both places have cemeteries. And that's really nice about looking at villages, early villages, communities, certainly in Arizona, is go visit the cemeteries and look at the gravestones. Look at the time that people died and what year this village existed, because they're buried there. And so my grandmother, as a child, probably a baby, I think she was just maybe a few months old, she came to what we called Old Guadalupe. Now, Old Guadalupe is very close to here. Some of you may have visited our cemetery. It's now a cemetery. But Old Guadalupe started being settled, you might say, as families were coming into the valley to work, as I said, in the agricultural fields, mining communities, railroad. And it was very, very small. And so we're looking at the late 1800s. And so in 1898, there was a Tempe homesteader named Sylvester Roach, who actually gave the first 5 acres to this little area plot of land where Yaqui families were coming together. And I think he gave it to the Catholic Diocese Church for just $1. And so we have then from St. Mary's downtown Catholic diocese, they sent Father Lucius Zidier, a Franciscan priest, to come and provide Mass and other services to this really small enclave of Yaqui families. And the families, once they knew that it was okay for them to build a church, they built a church. And this is a small chapel that was built, and it's very close to here, just south of Baseline, between Hardy and Priest. And so it's open during the week. It's operated today by the town of Guadalupe, but a very interesting cemetery, because you'll see very old gravestones in this particular cemetery. And it was very important for the Yaqui community, the Yueme, to continue a lifestyle pretty much what they were used to in other villages in Sonora and Mexico. They built their homes out of simple materials that were found in the desert. And you can see some of these structures during this time. These photos were taken by a man named Dane Coolidge, who wrote an article, took pictures and wrote an article for the Sunset magazine in 1909. And that's why we have these photographs of that early period. And you can see the Yaqui family. You can see Matachini dancers dancing in front of the chapel. And if you really take a close look at these photographs, you already see some simple grave sites by the church. And so this town site of Guadalupe, because it was very, this area of the cemetery that we know now, Old Guadalupe, was very valuable to many of the farmers, ranchers in the area. They wanted to support the Yaqui families because obviously they were good workers, they were good neighbors, but it was during the reclamation period and Roosevelt Dam had come to be, and they wanted to be able to grow crops in this very important fertile land. And if the Yaqui families kept growing and growing, they were going to be taking up valuable land, agricultural land. So there was a conversation dialogue. Okay, these families, they're growing. We need to move them to an area close by, but land that's not valuable at all. There's no water there. We need to move them to higher ground. So that's what happened with this Guadalupe town site. So they were moved. And so through the negotiations with individuals like Father Lucius Zidier and other business community members and political leaders, they were actually able to buy some land where Guadalupe now exists, which is further south and further west from the old Guadalupe. And it was in 1910 that 40 acres were a gift to the Catholic diocese, and it was by a woman named Marian Higgins. And this became the new Guadalupe town site. And then later, by 1914, President Woodrow Wilson had a declaration ceding the 40 acres to the Yaqui families that were relocated from Old Guadalupe to New Guadalupe. And you can see, let me see if I can use this pointer. This is Guadalupe, and of course, this is the canal by Guadalupe. And you can see from these other bigger maps, Tempe, and of course, where the old cemetery, where the old Guadalupe was located. So these are photographs of, circa 1920. And so when the families were relocated, then it was left as a cemetery. And the families, because they wanted to resurrect their chapel, their church, they started to take the valuable items from the chapel that was at the old Guadalupe, at the cemetery site now. They took the roof parts as well as windows and other things that they could take to rebuild the church, because at that time, all these materials were valuable as they moved to the new location. And you can see that we were in the middle of the desert, and you can see that just north and east, all the agricultural fields. You can see all the agricultural fields to the north and the east, and right here is the 40 acres. And these two buildings were the churches. And I was born someplace over here, behind the churches. So you can see that Tempe, Phoenix, has grown quite a bit. Just, it's amazing. And so you could see that the church was very similar to the church that was in Old Guadalupe. And what you see next to Our Lady of Guadalupe is another church. And that is the church that we call Santa Lucia. And it was made in the manner that it was made because we have religious ceremonies. One of the most important one is during the 40 days of Lent. And so it requires a different kind of church for the ceremonies, the participants during Lent and for other times. And that's why we always have had a church that is very open. Even today, that church of Santa Lucia has a dirt floor because our ceremonies require a different type of facility than what you would find in modern churches. And so Father Lucius Zidier was always encouraging the education of the people, of the children. And so there was always classes that were provided to the children of Guadalupe. Here, because it was the 1920s, and you will see that also in the exhibit, that there were Americanization classes. And so you will see that one class had all females and children, mothers and their children, to come to these classes. In another photograph, you'll see only males. So they really separated the classes by gender. And Guadalupe kept growing. There was a missionary by the name of Jenny Bean who also came to Guadalupe, and she was Presbyterian. And so she too bought some acres close to La Cuarenta, and 160 acres. She had left another state to come here because of the health and well-being of her husband. You may recall that many individuals that were suffering from tuberculosis would come to Arizona because of the climate, or they might have had other illnesses that required a lot of sun and dry air. So Jenny Bean, she came, and you could see that the actual blue area right here was the tract of land that she bought. And right here, this little one was the original 40 acres. So you could see that Guadalupe is growing. And at that time, it was just called Yaqui Town. Many of the people in Tempe and Phoenix just called it Yaqui Town. Now, this is a group of individuals, families that were part of the Presbyterian Church congregation. And this picture was probably in the 1930s. And some of them, when I showed this particular photograph, there were families in Guadalupe that could recognize their grandparents and their parents. Now, in this picture is my family. Right in the middle, right there, is my great-grandmother. Behind her is my grandmother, Octaviana Vacasewa. And this is my mom, Maria. And so we're lucky that we have this photograph to show the family and the strong Yaqui women that we are. And so in Guadalupe, you had many other religions, including, of course, Pentecostal, and they still exist. And they have families not only from Guadalupe attending these services, they also have families from outside of Guadalupe that come to these churches and are part of those congregations. So Guadalupe in the 40s and 50s, my goodness. So you had Mexican families, also Mexican immigrants that were coming to this part of the valley. And so you had a family by the name of Castelo and Solares, and they also bought big tract of property. Oh, shoot, let me go back. You can see, this is La Cuarenta, so they bought the Solares family bought to the north of La Cuarenta, and then the other family to the south of La Cuarenta. And so these families eventually divided those properties and sold them as property lots to other families coming to the Salt River Valley. Many years ago, and I remember this as a child, this is a shrine, a very important day for us, the Day of the Holy Cross. And it was a time after Easter where our families, along with the matachini dancers, deer dancer, pascolas, it was a whole ceremony around the day of the Holy Cross. And you will see a Holy Cross, a Yaqui Holy Cross, in the exhibit area. And what you do is you make a new one to bless your home and to keep your family safe the day of the Holy Cross. And if you had one prior to that, that's all probably dried out because it's made out of willow branches, then you burn it. You burn it because it's done, and then you build a new one. So this particular shrine is for the day of the Holy Cross, and we had our ceremonies on top of this hill just west of Guadalupe. This was before I-10. So we would do this, and I remember it because I grew up in Guadalupe. There was no I-10. And so it was a beautiful festivity. And in this picture, I will show you, these are relatives, but this is my sister Tony, and this is my brother Felix. So we are with relatives there, with an uncle, and it was a nice day to take a picture, you know. Not during ceremony, I'm sure, you know, this particular shrine was there all year long. And this is South Mountain, because before I-10, the desert was our playing ground. There were, you know, you could just go and walk to the whole South Mountain Park, the casitas, that whole area was for children or families just to have a walkabout, and it was just beautiful. It was just very open. But here you can see that they are already prepping this piece of land. You may recall that a very famous resort was going to be built, and it's there now, just south of Baseline and west of I-10, called The Point. And that's what it looks like now. You know, it's a golf course close to the entrance to South Mountain Park. A lot of hikers go there. A lot of people that ride their bikes, mountain bikes. But when I was growing up, there was no Point Resort, Ahwatukee, or I-10. And so here you can see where I have the arrow, and you can see that the shrine where the arrow is, that's where La Santa Cruz, we would call this little area, this little hill, Santa Cruz. And you can see now in 67 that there is an I-10, the interstate. And of course, this whole area now is the Point, the resort, and Baseline is over here. But this is where our little ceremonies were for the Holy Cross, the day of the Holy Cross. And of course, this is the main road. When I was growing up, it was just rural route. We would have to collect our mail on that main road, which is Avenida del Yaqui, or what you may know as Priest Road. But we had our mail, all these little mailboxes along Avenida del Yaqui, Priest Road. Nobody had individual home mailboxes because it was a rural route. We're still very much part of the Maricopa County jurisdiction. I went to Guadalupe School, now called Frank School. And so here you see some of the images of students and how Frank School, Guadalupe School looked. And you'll see some of those images too in better images, interesting images in the exhibit of the school now called Frank. I went to Guadalupe School when Vida B. Frank was the principal. Mrs. Ruby Woods was a school nurse, And so I can say that I met and was part of that school when both of them were there. Mrs. Frank was the principal, and of course, Mrs. Wood was she did all kinds of things. She was like a social worker, she was a school nurse, she had many talents. And if you live in Tempe, these two ladies have elementary schools named after them because of their commitment to education and their service to Tempe District Number 3. And the bell, if you go to Frank's school in Guadalupe, that bell was the same bell that was there when I was going to school. The bell would be rung in the morning to get us to go to the school. There was no busing. Everybody that lived in Guadalupe went to Guadalupe school. And then everybody went home to have lunch early in those years. And then they'd ring the bell, come back to school. So this bell is still there. And now, of course, you can see the two churches side by side, Our Lady of Guadalupe and Santa Lucia, named for Father Lucius. And now we have all kinds of challenges as a small town, less than 1 mile. The town of Guadalupe incorporated in 1975, so it does have a status as a town. And there was quite a lot of controversy. There were families that actually wanted to stay independent. There were others that thought that maybe Tempe would annex them, the city of Tempe, and others wanted to be annexed by Phoenix. Others wanted to have their own independence and become a town because the cultures were and the history was very, very unique. And so they put it to the vote, and we became a town. With a town council, you'll see also some photographs in the exhibit with individuals that were part of the early town council. They also had like a volunteer fire department. There were a lot of services that everyone had to pull together so that everyone's need would be made. So in this particular photograph, you can see that this is a cultural plaza. I was born like in here someplace, and this is I-10 right here. And then beyond I-10 is Ahwatukee, the resort, the point. And you can see that Guadalupe is totally, totally surrounded by business, by neighborhoods, by I-10. But growing up, we would go into downtown Phoenix maybe once a month, but not all the kids could go. It's like, who needs shoes? Who needs clothing? Who needs what? And then we'll take them downtown for those goods, for those services. Tempe was another area, but Tempe didn't have downtown as many things as downtown Phoenix did. Or to go see a movie. You'd go downtown Phoenix, and everything was downtown Phoenix. And I, as a child, I would go up to that little hill. Now it's Rustler's Roost, if you've gone to that restaurant. And I would look, and I would think, I think I want to be down there. I mean, there's just no... But then I loved the desert, but I would see it like so far away as a child. Like, how often would I be able to go downtown Phoenix, because very few people lived in the town or close to the town of Guadalupe. So we were pretty much far away from everything. Now, all the children that live within Guadalupe, north of Guadalupe Road, went to Guadalupe School. Those that lived south of Guadalupe Road went to Kyrene Public Schools. So my friend who's sitting in the back, he went to the Kyrene Public Schools. But we all went to Tempe Union High School. And so I graduated from McClintock High School. And I was telling my friend, family friend, Bart, we went to McClintock High School about the same time. And not too long ago, maybe a couple of months ago, I went for the first time to a reunion, and it was my 50th high school reunion. It's been a long time. And there was just, when I graduated, there were literally just a handful of Guadalupanos that graduated from McClintock High School with me at that time. Literally just a handful. When I went to college, and shortly before I went to college, Guadalupe School was being desegregated, and they divided up the town and bused children to several elementary schools because they had to desegregate the school. And so when I went to Guadalupe School, it was a time when there's no bilingual education, ESL, English as a second language. It was a time where only English was going to be used, and it was a state law. English was the only language that could be used in public schooling. And so I remember going to school, and none of the teachers speaking to us in our native language, whether it was Yueme or Spanish, only English. And it was a very harsh time, because if you spoke your own native language, you would receive punishment. Either a ruler on your hands, or sometimes, we would try to find a place where they couldn't hear us. But sometimes that teacher would walk into the girls' bathroom, and if she heard us, aha, we caught you. And at that time, there was this pink, powdery soap. And then they'd make us wash our mouths out, because that's a no-no. You cannot speak your own language, only English. And so I think, so English is pretty much my third language, and sometimes I have difficulty in expressing myself because I'm thinking or processing in different languages. And if they if they heard you even way out, we would run to far areas of the playground. But if they caught us, then they said, okay, then pick up trash all over the playground. So there would be these punishments for children if they spoke their native language. And so Guadalupe School was a community school. And because of desegregation, children had to be bused. I think they started with 8 different schools around Tempe. And only those that were like in La Cuarenta could go to Guadalupe School, later named Frank School, and others were bused to different schools around Tempe because of the desegregation plan. Well, there was some conflict, obviously, with family and community leaders. And so there were some political activists, community leaders, who said, we're teachers. We're going to begin our own school. So they did. It was called Ito Me Escuela. Ito means our in Yaqui. Escuela means school, our school. And families took them to this little school. And in Guadalupe, there's a parish center that's owned by the Catholic Church in Guadalupe. And that's where the classes were for children. And it was trilingual classes. And so their school calendar was based on those important holidays and events that were important to the community of Guadalupe. And there were many, many volunteers, school teachers that came to volunteer because of their action of saying, what has happened to the children is wrong. We were not consulted as parents, so we're going to just manage our own school. Well, the school operated for several years, but as you well know, operating public schools costs a lot of money. How long can you sustain a school? And so that's what happened. Eventually, Itome Escuela closed. But that was something that happened because there was no consultation, no engagement, community engagement. And we also know that there's been a lot of social injustices. And Guadalupe is there because when I-10 was being planned, some of those planners and politicians, political leaders from the state saw this poor little village of only people of color, indigenous and primarily Mexican American, that they could have gentrification or kind of move them. It's kind of like what happened to so many of these wonderful neighborhoods all over the country during the time of modern cities. It happened certainly in Tucson. It happened here in Phoenix too, where these really important neighborhoods would be moved because of progress. And so because at that time in the 60s, there's a lot of activism, a lot of changes that were happening in the country, like in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, those social, political movements against the Vietnam War, really African Americans saying they wanted, and Mexican Americans saying that they wanted to see more of their history being taught at universities. So it was kind of like the birth to Mexican American studies, Chicana studies, African American studies, Native American studies, all those movements were happening. And so because there was a lot of organizing, the town officials, town activists, political leaders said, you know, we need to vote. So they had a big drive for getting people to register to vote, because we were still part of, you know, the Tempe schools, Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, that they could have an impact in getting these elected officials to listen to Guadalupanos about their needs and their challenges. So little by little, Guadalupe started having infrastructure development, you know, sewers. You know, I grew up where everybody had an outhouse. No indoor plumbing. Then we got even our mail to be delivered to our house. We got our streets paved. Growing up, they were not paved; they're just dirt streets. I don't think I'm that old, but anyway. So I've seen a lot in the years that I've been on this earth, as far as this little community, and we still have challenges. You know, we have challenges because. This little plot of land that started with 40 acres, and it grew a little bit because of Jenny Bean and the Solares and the Gustelums that added to Guadalupe town site. It was land that was not seen as valuable because it could not be irrigated. It was as hard as a rock, literally. And so nobody wanted this land, and now it's very valuable land. Very valuable land. And so what happens if you have valuable land? Property taxes. And with some families having limited means, how do they pay for their property taxes that keep going up and up and up? They're just right off I-10, 10 minutes to the airport, just 15 minutes to Arizona State University. Hey, my God, it's really in an ideal setting. So they do have challenges, but we're very determined people. We're determined, we're stubborn, and we have a lot of pride, and we have a lot of resiliency. So I hope that all our allies, friends, will join us in making sure Guadalupe will be there forever. Chocutesia, muchas gracias. Thank you for coming. I think we have time for a few questions, and we have our leader
Any questions that anyone has about, this was very engaging. As I said, Guadalupe has been kind of an adjunct to Tempe for so many years, and it's like going to a different world. I had a couple. One, you were talking about going to downtown Phoenix for activities there, and in your era, how did you get down there?
Well, we had a very, we had a car that didn't go very fast or very far. Sometimes we'd go on a bus, but that took us a long time. But primarily, we did have a family vehicle. But it couldn't go that fast or that far. Otherwise, it would start overheating. But anyhow, that's how we got down there. And there was always a place where we could park, and we parked, and whoever got to go downtown, there was a really nice cafe there downtown called Joe's Cafe. They made the best hamburgers. So I remember that as a child because you could sit in those little stools that, you could go around and around. It was a cafe, like a really interesting cafe. And that Cafe Joe, they made the best hamburgers.
Wow. And to get to school, did Tempe provide the buses?
Yes, Tempe, once the children were bused to the Tempe schools, there was bus transportation. But I have to say, and also when I went to Gilliland Junior High. That's where I went to for my middle school, junior high. And then I went to, we were bused there, and then McClintock High School. Later, the students, I think initially the students from Guadalupe went to Tempe High, then McClintock, Marcos de Niza, and then Corona, and now I think students can decide where they want to go. And that was very interesting because McClintock also, when it was being built, was in the middle of agricultural fields. If you look at when McClintock High School was being built, it was in the middle of cotton fields.
Sure, even as late as the 60s or getting close to the 70s, Tempe was a totally different place. And now, there's very little recognizable. Suddenly we become an urban center with the high-rises in the downtown. One of the things I wonder too, because how many have been to Guadalupe? Oh, good, everybody. It has such a unique character and a unique feel in the midst of this very hectic and busy urban environment. How does it retain its character that makes it so special?
Well, I think because you have a town council that knows its history and knows the resiliency and persistence of retaining those cultural values. It's very important for the Yaqui community to retain its ceremonies. We are now part of the Pascua Yaqui Tribal Council. The Yaquis received federal recognition in 1978, so it's pretty recent. And that was because of just the political status that we had. And so the Pascua Yaqui of Arizona provides a lot of resources to the town of Guadalupe to maintain Guadalupe, but also the town respects those important ceremonies. So whether they are weddings, whether they are funerals, whether it's during Easter, and because everyone knows everyone, even pets that are just roaming around your yard, it's a small village.
And you just alluded to, I'll get to you right in a second, to Easter. The Easter pageant, which probably goes back to the beginning of the town, is something that not only attracted the locals, but Anglos from around the valley. That's still being maintained?
Absolutely. It's quite large, and all of you are welcome. Bring your faith. No cameras or audio recording, but yes, everyone is welcome to be an observer of the Lenten ceremonies during Easter time.
And do you
Absolutely.
know the dates this year?
I forget when Easter is, but it's 40 days of Lent. Begins Ash Wednesday for anyone that's Catholic here. Look at the calendar when Ash Wednesday is, and then it goes through Easter Sunday. And of course, it really doesn't totally complete the cycle until the day of the Holy Cross, which usually is in May.
And let's see, yes, and then I'll get to you, sir.
My question is, what percentage are there now with Yaqui Indians, and what percentage with the Mexicans? And I know there's probably a lot of intermarrying, but
Oh, absolutely. There's quite a few intermarriage. Now, I would say more than 60% are Yaqui families, but there is quite a bit of intermarriage. And there are a few African-American families, like maybe a couple, and a couple of European-American families, too.
Approximately 10 years ago, I was coming from Priest down the street where the two churches are. The road was blocked. They allowed me to go in a parking lot. There was a curb-to-curb parade of costumed people. They said no cameras. I'm sorry. I wish I had recorded it. But what was that?
If they said no cameras, obviously, they will. If there's a procession, they will block the main corridor, which is Priest, which is Avenida del Yaqui, the main road that goes through town. If there's a ceremony, a procession, which is a large procession of community members, participants, they would have, that most likely it was probably during the Lenten season, everything before Easter, yeah.
They were beautiful costumes, dancing,
Yes,
and everybody was in their yards watching.
yes, yeah. Very beautiful. They have a big festivity too, and processions for Our Lady of Guadalupe in December. Nowadays, they have really nice events and parades for veterans. Veterans Day, during Christmas, there's a really nice electric parade, and so usually there's high school bands from Tempe that come and join them, and they just march right through the middle of the street. And so obviously, if they're doing that, they will have a detour for people needing to go through Guadalupe. I think, go ahead.
Octaviana, do you
Yes.
remember me?
You look very familiar. Is it Esquer?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't even have my glasses, but it looked like you.
Yeah, I grew up in the ranch B&M Farms right here on Baseline and McClintock, and we would come into, my mother would shop at Ben Sotomayor's store. We were there all through the war years. A little bit older than you are. Anyway, my curiosity is on the ethnic makeup of the group. I know they're mostly Yaquis. My dad is from Alamos, which is near the Yaqui lands there in Sonora. He knew a little bit of Yaqui because he had a lot of the workers. He was a foreman at Mulberry Farms in Tucson, and all his workers were Yaquis. So he knew some of the language, and he passed it on to us. Just words, nothing grammatical. But my question is, I've never met most of the Solares. By the way, I knew Jose Solares pretty well. I've never met any other ethnic groups, either Seris or Opatas or Apaches within the community of Guadalupe. And I don't know if there is or not. But
There may be a few Atam, that have intermarried with the Yaqui, but no, you're absolutely right. I don't know, personally, I do not know of any Seri, Opata, and others that settled in Guadalupe.
yeah, okay. But it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you.
And I think we've got a question here.
Hello. I came in a little late, maybe you covered this already, but has the community ever tried to get federal recognition as their own entity or tribe?
The Yaqui have federal American Indian recognition, and it's all the Yaquis in the world. You could be living in New York or living in Timbuktu or Tokyo. If you if you enrolled, became an enrolled member of the Pascua Yaqui tribe during the base roll, what they called the base roll, which was between 1978 and 80, that created the base. And then in 1980, unfortunately, they closed the rolls. At that time, it was kind of like a wait-and-see attitude by so many Yaqui families, because they've always said, well, you know, the Bureau of Indian Affairs doesn't have a very good reputation, or the U.S., and the relationship they have with American Indians. We know we're indigenous. We know we're Yaqui. We know we're Indian. Why do we want to be under the auspices or be part of this bureaucracy? So they said, no, we're not going to be enrolled members. And so once it took a little bit more time and they realized that there was some benefits to being federally recognized, more families wanted to be part of the enrollment. So they were placed under pending. They had all the documents, their blood quantum, their family tree, and so there's a process by which we have an enrollment office to say, yes, you are Yaqui. And so many, especially the elders, were dying, and there was a great concern because the rolls were closed. There needed to be another act of Congress to open up the rolls again. So it was during my time on the Pascua Yaqui Tribal Council that we took this legislation to Congress and had quite a bit of, congressional hearings to open up the rolls. And I was traveling back and forth with an elder who had actually led the movement for federal recognition, the late Anselmo Valencia, who later became my compadre. And so we would go back and forth, and it was a long process, legislative, congressional, political process. And I remember in one of those hearings, where they said, well, if, like in the early years, even before then, if we, why should we give you federal recognition? The U.S. never fought a battle against you. There was never a war between the U.S. government and the Pascua and the Yaqui tribe. And so he just said, well, sir, I'm going to go back to Tucson. I'm going to gather the Yaqui Warrior Society, the Coyote Society, and yes, we're going to take our drums. We're going to declare war on the U.S. We might lose in a matter of seconds, but is that what's going to take for you to recognize us? And so that was obviously a very poignant remark. But there were others that were very interesting, even for opening up the rolls, which we did in those hearings, and that was in 74. 74? Trying to think, like I'm having to think about my time. Oh, no, 94. And so now we are a historical tribe, and it's a whole process, legislative process through the Bureau of Indian Affairs and how it's all structured, because when we were federally recognized in 78, it was actually under the term created. And so part of our testimonies to Congress and to those hearings was because they said even the term is archaic. It shouldn't, we said only God, our superior being, can create us, not the Congress. So we were able to be successful with that legislation.
Yeah, time for one more.
Good questions.
What is the population of Guadalupe, and how much real estate is in Guadalupe?
Population size and what? The status?
The land area.
It's less than 1 square mile still. In Guadalupe, it's less than 1 square mile. And I think the population is around 7,000 perhaps.
In this discussion, one thing that came to mind is there is so much history in Guadalupe that I'm not sure why nobody has approached it as the potential for a local historic district or on the National Register of Historic Places, because it is terribly unique, and usually all that has to take place internally. But if that's something the community wanted, I think it could get some assistance in getting either or both of those designations.
The old Guadalupe, which is now our cemetery, recently got that historical recognition. Now, the community of Guadalupe, that's another matter, and if we had more time, I could talk about previous folks many years ago that wanted to do that, but there's a story there too, but I don't have time today. I have to say something before I leave, because it goes back to identity and women and the strength of women, and certainly my mother, my grandmother. When I was born at home, and it took them a few days for me to be registered, so I could a recorded birth. And so my aunt also had a child, and she was born the early part of January. And my grandmother, Octaviana Valenzuela, really wanted to have someone named after her. And so I didn't have a name for many, many days. And so when my aunt named my cousin Gloria and Octaviana, and not Octaviana, evidently my grandmother was very hurt that my aunt Macaria did not name her daughter Octaviana. And so my mom named me Octaviana in honor of my grandmother. And when I was actually found a copy of my birth certificate, because I was going to go through a process of my first passport, I learned many, many things at that time. When I looked at that birth certificate, at that time of my birth, the state of Arizona only had 2 races, colors that you could be, either black or white. Well, on that form, my mom put another little checkbox, put a big X, Yaqui Indian. So on my birth certificate, it says Yaqui Indian. And then where it said a hospital, White House behind church. So I learned so much from that birth certificate about the resiliency and about who I am today.
This has really been so revealing. Let's thank Octaviana again for coming out today. And I also want to, just as a memento, and actually this is absolutely perfect. Richard Nearing, as most of you know, was a premier pen and ink artist. He passed away a couple of years ago, has done a number of books, which we have in the gift shop, and also these incredible pen and ink sketches. But this one is of Guadalupe, the 2 churches that are there, and I believe it's even signed.
Wow,
so,
great. Look at that. It's beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let me just give you a couple of notices. One, our next lunch talks is February 8th, and Rosemary James will be here. And her topic isn't so much Tempe or local, but there are some comparisons that can be drawn, and she'll be talking about growing up in the South. And of course, that was totally different. But there were a lot of similar experiences. So I think that's one that you might want to put on your calendar, February 8th, the second Wednesday of every month. And there is so much going on here at the museum that we hope that you'll take time to come back, particularly today. If you have the opportunity, this Guadalupe exhibit is absolutely remarkable. This is a hidden gem, not only for Tempe, but in the valley that few people just don't have a lot of knowledge about. And because of today's talks, I think we know a lot more. And as a theme this year, we have a lot of Latino performances happening in 2023 as a celebration of the Yaqui experience, the Hispanic experience here in Tempe. And I'm not going to read all of the list, but there's a sheet out at the counter in the lobby that lists everything that's going on. Everything here at the museum is free. And I don't know why. I mean, I don't even get paid, but that's a whole nother story. So there are, next month is Black History Month. We will have a lot of activities as part of that. The museum for a long time was kind of criticized for not being as diverse as it could be because the history of this community is very broad. Long before any Anglos came here, of course, you had the local indigenous people, Yaqui coming up from Mexico, and the Mexican community was already farming here before any whites came along. So we've really been trying to catch up and recognize what makes this city so important and so great, and that's its true diversity. So with that, one other thing, I usually ask that at the beginning, but how many are members of the society? Oh, this is really good. Oh, this half is great. This I can just get out or join. It doesn't really cost anything, but it's so important for us because we are always looking for additional monies. That's what the society does today, is raise funds for activities here at the museum. The city's very good at funding the operation and the staff and that sort of thing, but they can always use more money when it comes to certain activities or particular needs that the museum has for exhibits and presentations. And when you go out for grants, the first thing that a grantor wants to know is how many members do you have? So we can really use your support, and if you really can't afford it, call me and I'll pay for it. But we just need to keep the numbers growing. So with that, I want to thank you all very much for coming out today. Those that are watching on Facebook, we appreciate that too, and we will see you again on February 8th. Have a great month.